As you know, we have had the opportunity to read the root text, the sayings of the Buddha called Udanavarga, a collection of specific expressions of the Buddha that are regarded to be original sayings of Buddha, but later compiled by Dhammapada in 3rd century, and therefore put together in the text known as Udanavarga. Otherwise, the text, other version of the text in pan-Buddhist literature is known as Dhammapada, but that Dhammapada is shorter in number of chapters as well as the verses. This one has 33 chapters, and we have been reading the Tibetan text and translation in these lessons. So we have completed the first 15 chapters, and there's still another 18 chapters left to our delight. So, so tonight we're going to go through the 16th chapter, and thankfully it has been good for me because I have been able to spend a bit of time to do the draft translation each week. So I've nearly completed that draft. so by the time when we read through all of this, I might have a reasonable form of translation for this text, at least for those people who wish to read. But anyway, so we're going to start on the chapter 16. Chapter 16 is called Miscellaneous. The topic itself is therefore not specific, but so miscellaneousness would therefore cover a number of varieties of topic. Daki chawa chawe tuyowe tambo kona chawe mezeki. It starts with the first two lines saying that the time for you to do work has elapsed. So meaning that what it's saying is that we're putting too much on our plate and thinking we have time to do all of that. Means that time for you to do all of that has elapsed. From the outside, keep a watchful eye, which means that one needs to be selective and prioritize what is it that one really needs to do, instead of being bogged down by so many and end up not doing any one of them very well. Which when it says keep a watchful eyes, you don't have the time to do all of the above, and therefore if one thinks one has a lot of time, you are mistaken. So therefore be practical to set your eyes on few reasonable ones, and not take on and say yes to many things and end up not fulfilling many of them. But take few, and therefore watchfully put your effort into it before the time elapses. They talk about timeline or deadline in the modern world. If you have too many, you can't do all of that. You're bombarded, and people have a lot of anxiety, mainly because of that. They take on too much greedily without being realistic. I think this could be true for all of us, because whether it's an individual, whether what we do educationally, or whether we do socially, or whether we do domestically or communally, what we do, we have to be realistic, even our commitment to very loved ones. Sometimes we take on too much as we are so needed type of thing, but we don't realize how much time all of those does take. So it seems those two lines is a great lesson for all of us. Don't try to do too much without knowing whether you can do it or not. Be realistic. Daki tangbo tetra chenene chawa chewe tudra sendo jing chidar depa te shin jo jirbe te ranshin ngaye tongwe na chisi tenen Punsun Sojewa, Disipada Mi Dimbriki. So this next 4 lines says, if I do work right from the very beginning, means if you set your mind what you have to do without any waste of time in taking too much but not doing much, it is desirable to finish on time. Yeah, once you have set out to do something, then create a time when you like them to be done. And so that means you have to start pretty much on a particular time in order to therefore plan, time yourself when you might be, when it might be desirable to finish, had it done. Because people who are disciplined with time management, they have a lot of happiness, satisfaction. People who have not been disciplined have a lot of things undone, and then they feel very sad because they have many things started, but very few of them finished. All people's sadness comes from their unsatisfactory outcome because they've been too sloppy and lack of time management. So desirable to finish on time. Why it is desirable in time? Firstly, it will benefit others. Secondly, it boosts your own sense of purpose, usefulness. And also at the time, your time is very precious. Your life is ebbing continuously closer and closer to the inevitable. You won't have much time, whether it's a week, whether it's a month, whether it's a year, whether it's a contract, whatever it is. Your time's getting nearer and nearer, like the sun is setting, particularly on a short day like today, you know. Some people's day doesn't start until 11 o'clock, and then they think they have a lot of time. There's only 6 hours left. If their day starts fairly as soon as the sun rises, at least they got maybe 11 hours or something, because the winter solstice is about to come. It's getting very, very short. Yes, it's better to finish on time. Since I can see the nature of the task, which means whether it is the load of preparation, needing to contract other people, needing to seek help other people, needing to gather the resources, materials, when one can see the nature of task, it will be achieved exactly as it is desired. Yeah, if you're disciplined, you can time carefully and not impeded by other things, you know. If you have promised to do many things, yeah, then you can't do even one very well. But if you just take on one very well and set your mind on it, because that's exactly what Buddha did. When it came at age 29, he doesn't want to do the thing. You know? He doesn't want to do the king thing. You know? He doesn't want to do the husband thing. You know? He doesn't want to do the father thing. You know? He doesn't want to do all the things everybody worshipped him. He said, no, that's enough. Because he realized he's got limited time. Yeah. He achieved exactly what he desired in 6 years. 6 years, because he set his mind on it and he said no to all else. Until, yeah. Until the purpose is fully realized, people should persevere. Yeah. Until you don't take on too many things, those you do take on, persevere. You know, don't give up in the middle. It will be bad on your standing, and it may not befit yourself to take up on anything, because you said you will and then you won't do it. But those who persevere, they should take up small things, but those they do take on must persevere in order to maximize their usefulness of the time and benefit to others, and also boost one's morale and self-confidence. Yeah. People who have no confidence and have very low self-esteem is because they have failed to themselves and to others, to their work or to their parents or to the people, and spiritually or materially, whatever, they have failed, and then they didn't realize. And then what do have they got? They have sadness, and then they get depressed, and then they don't feel like doing anything because their whole motivation is dashed, demotivated. She said, yeah, dimsing somebody chawai, dani lingdon jurwarcha, by concentration and diligence, one should become an island, meaning that you're completely not available. Try to get busy with many things. Island means you have to be away from all other activities. You have to take time to do that well, whether it's doing early or doing not other things, reading or listening. Some people want to do so many multitask. They put radio on, they eat chewing gums, and then they try to write, or all things. So many things you can't do it. You just have to stop chewing gum. You have to stop listening to radio, or you got to be the island to whatever you're doing. It's like one point in meditation. Then only you will be able to achieve. Because by concentration and diligence, concentration usually means fixed your attention to the very object and task that is oriented, not dissipatable, distractible. Diligence means have to have some kind of purpose and joy, joyful delight in doing it, and not try to entertain oneself while doing the things, Putting the triple J on while trying to do serious writing or something like that. That is, there's nothing on triple J, that's not a noise. But if you want to focus, just switch all off. Be an island, it says. Be an island means nothing can reach to you. Yeah. So that's what Buddha did. He went all the way from Kapilavastu to Magadha kingdom in the Bodhi tree, which is like an island even today, on big trunk road, Yeah, it is still very far away. Yeah, you have to be in solitude. You have to be away from consorting with various activities. If you're not, your concentration will slip, and diligence will be short-lived. Garwa yin mushi to ragi tema jamri tema jangma kyominju chine kedan gamet ho. See, purify all one's stains, like silversmith works with silver. No faults will arise from cleansing the stains. There will be no more birth and death. So this has been used as an analogy of how a silversmith works with ore, and how by using the various mixtures such as mercury and so on, and heat and right kind of temperature, and whether it's melting or whether it's molding, putting in the mold or casting or whatever he does, he has to purify the ore so that the pure silver becomes extracted, and all the stains or whatever the things that are in the ore that need to be eliminated, then the pure silver will be extracted. Likewise, like right now, our mind is like ore. It is mixed with all kinds of other things like selfishness and desire and anger and childishness and short-sightedness. All these things are there. When you practice with diligence, this will be slowly eliminated, and then your mind, your consciousness will not have this weight of karma, weight of one's own me and mine problems that propels us to be born again and die again and so on. This vicious cycle of birth and death cannot be stopped unless those stains are removed. Those stains are removed. Stains are referring to the afflictive stains, cognitive stains, and karmic stains. And so when one is changing one's karmic stains for being lazy, become diligent, being scattered, become focused, being unmanageable with the time, one manage time. When one does that, then all the karmic stains, weakness become eliminated. And then when the karmic afflictions are eliminated, then the afflictive emotions become much more cognizable. And then when these gross afflictions are removed, then you discover the subtle, the cognitive obscuration, me and mine, I and me, clinging to the name and doings and failings as self. So then one disassociate with those, and slowly there will be no rebirth, because the ability to not have rebirth, because birth is suffering, remember? Birth is the cause of suffering, and cause of birth is those stains, the afflictive and cognitive obscurations. So there's no birth. Birth is not caused by father and mother. Father and mother are just conditions. If the consciousness doesn't have the propelled by its own affliction and karma, no parent can produce children. There are a lot of parents who haven't produced children. They're unsuccessful. It's because there isn't anyone who's going to take up. Who's going to take up to be your children? So and they have to have enough karmic stains to wanting to be born and so on. So yeah, we actually pray so that we do not be born in the samsara again. And praying doesn't work. One has to actually uncause the cause. So that's why he says purify, just like the silversmith works with the silver, eliminate the stains, and to extract the pure silver. Likewise, we too have pure silver. We have Buddha nature. Yeah, we have Buddha nature. We all have many good qualities, many host qualities, and they should be extracted with a great diligence. But one has to put the effort to remove those things. So then it goes to say, how do you remove them? Ngotsa mila ngotsa shing, ngotsa wala ngomitsa. Minjik pala njik tata, jikpa jikla minjik tawai, lopar tawalang be, semjing and drawer cure. This is 6-line verse. Feeling ashamed without any reason. Yeah, that's one of the stains. And so that's the kind of improper way of feeling ashamed without any reason. So worldly reason, maybe worldly reason, not ashamed of shameful things. So that's exactly the opposite. Not ashamed of one's greed, one's selfishness, one's whatever the afflicted things, not even noticing that they need to be ashamed of. Fearful of what is of no cause for fear. Yeah. So these are fearful of people, for instance. fearful of death, for instance. you can't stop death anyway if you fear every day. So there's no point fearing it as if you can do something about it. You already finished the cause of it. The cause of death is birth. So so how can you fear the result when your cause has already been created? So fearful of what is not cause for fear, afraid of what is not afraid of, what is not to be afraid of. Yeah. So misled by wrong views, and therefore one is clinging to things as they are real and permanent and satisfactory. These are wrong views. Sentient beings go to lower realms. So this is talking about if one doesn't go to eliminate those stains, as like with the silversmith work on silver, then sentient beings will behave in these 5 ways, and then go make themselves to earn a rebirth in one of the bad migration. And we think some countries are bad migration. They try to migrate, take a boat somewhere else. The real bad migration has already made decision in the previous life. To be born in here already is a bad migration. Still we wanted to go to another place, to another worse migrating place. Fearing where one is fearful. Not some place there is a lot of promise for wealth or status. One thinks there's a lot of hope, but actually one gets caught in the muddy pool of desire and competitiveness and materialism. That's what it's talking about. thinking that Buddha himself actually did the opposite. He was afraid that he may be seized by his possession and power. And he made a quick escape as if there was an alarm came on for him. Yeah. So he was that thoughtful to not be ensnared by the false promise of possessions and power and wealth, status, respect, which many people want. So he was he was afraid that he'd get attached to them. Everybody is afraid that they will not get these things. So, yeah, all fear is, all ordinary fear is fear of not getting the problem. And then they actually get it very successfully. So the Buddha was on the other side, other direction, we were on the other direction, all going to lower round. So it's amazing kind of whether you are on the way or not. When you're on the way up, you will on the way up, wouldn't you? When you're not on the way up, you will go downhill without noticing you are. That's exactly what you're talking about. Make sure, don't start too many tasks. Those you do, do well. Sentient beings do very well to go downhill, go downhill. But they've never been alerted before. They never heard the danger that they are creating to themselves in such situation. Dina kamu palimele kene patan dengyude tinda nima dawatar. This is one of the verse I think is the original verse that people like Nagarjuna quoted. Those who were previously heedless and later became cautious illuminate the whole world, just as the sun and moon devoid of clouds. This is talking about not being too harsh on one's mindless past. But even though you have had been deluded and selfish or undisciplined and lazy and so on, but that's past. You can become more cautious from here on not to do that, and then you can be freed from the cloud-like past. Like this, it may be a very dark, cloudy day, and it looks like sun is never going to shine, but that's not the case. And the sun is shining over this cloud all the time. Just that our location has happened to be there. So, there will be a time when the sun will be shining bright without the clouds. Likewise, do not dwell on the past and be negative to the past, but think that all things are transient, including your past problems. So your world will be illuminated, like the Buddha himself said this. And Nagarjuna Nagarjuna talks about the story of the Nanda and King Ajatasattu and Angulimala, who were three examples of desire, hatred, and ignorance. They've been very heedless in the past. Nanda, his half-brother case, is desire, and Angulimala's case was ignorance, really. And Ajatasattu's case, it was due to his hatred. So all of them, however terrible past they had, but once they met the Buddha and heard the teaching, they all illuminated. They came out of the darkness of the cloud of the past and became brilliant disciples of Buddha, and even their names are today revered as arhats. We don't remember so much of the people who didn't make progress, but they were terrible past, but they make huge progress. Like Milarepa, he killed 18 relatives, but then he became very heedful. He became very cautious not to waste his rest of his life anymore, and then with complete recollection, then he took the new direction. And then he completely illuminated the world. Then, even today, after 900 years, Milarepa is revered, remembered. His writings are chanted. His photos are painted in gold, revered, because he completely made his past and didn't dwell in that, but changed. So, therefore, those who wish to adopt heedfulness should not be harsh on themselves or to others, saying they have been like that. It's not a question of how saintly we become, but how mindful we should be, thinking, not lumping people with the past. It's amazing teaching, Just change our attitude about them and not call them they're violent or aggressive, because maybe they were not with the mind for a while. They did that, but that's not the only thing they do. They have done many good deeds. Why we are cursing people with one misdeed or a couple of misdeeds as if they're completely doomed? That's very cruel. That's very cruel. Dharma is about being kind to those who make mistake without knowing they were making, and then lift the kind of curse and be kind to them, and then see them as our friends, our parents, or our loved one, and then, you see, then all of a sudden we can reconnect, like the clouds disperse, and you reconnect, you find love with your mom, or dad, or fathers, or whoever that it is. And not only that, you are able to love again to others, others who have no parents, and so on. So these are really practical teachings. It's not question to become fully enlightened like the Buddha is a bit tall order, although it's not impossible, but to make small enlightenment, things like that areas, so that we become cautious and do not dwell on the past, become hateful, and then lift the clouds, lift the terrible yoke that is pushing our neck down, that is to do with ill will or resentment, and let the wisdom of Dharma and kindness and forgiveness and compassion lift those clouds, and then you're not going to be cursed by your past, nor will you curse others because of their past. Then you really are walking the path. Walking the path. Dina kangma pamele chine pada denjin jikde dena sepale tembale bandawaran euro. This next verse is along the same line. Those who were previously heedless, but later became cautious, with complete recollection. Recollection means where did they went wrong? How did they lapse their conscience? How they lost to their unreliable senses and heresy and misperceptions and wrong views. I was swayed by that story or this opinion because of my own bias against these, because of my own anger, my own emotional instability. That's how I went wrong. With complete recollection. Complete meaning not just saying the things people did or appear to did to us, but we don't realize how much we ourselves actually instigate those. And so take a complete recollection, take a complete stop, like stop tag. Take a complete stop and see what are no longer worthy, they're thrown away. They go beyond craving of this world, Then you will no longer hold the same opinion. Amazing. Then you become heedful because realize we are suffering from bad opinion. It's not a fixed object that was a problem. There's no object that's fixed. Everything is transient, everything is impermanent. But we are not changing our opinion. We're still stuck with the old opinions. This stagnation in opinion is what people do not know how to change. They say change. If we feel dirty in a cloth, we change. We feel dirty in a thought, we should change the thought. Because that's exactly the same, with complete recollection. Oh, I've been wearing this shirt 14 days without washing. Oh, really? It's the same one? Oh, yeah. Oh, don't you remember? You put on the 14 last 2 weeks ago. Yeah, recollect. You feel very soggy. In cold weather, not so much, but in some places, you realize what you've been wearing. Yeah, when you're not changing your clothes, you're in trouble. Not only you are in trouble, you will grow lice on top. Many other creatures simultaneously making home in your jacket. Yes. Yeah. Simple, temple like Vrindavan you love. Yes, with complete recollection, you go beyond. You can go beyond what you previously did. And you actually can change because you know exactly where things went wrong. And now you take stock of it, what they call complete recollection, meaning you take into account all the things and then say, oh, I shouldn't do this, this is the problem, this happened, this affected this. Those you can see the causal chain of it. Then you don't see one is the main cause of the problem. All of this not recollecting how, not recognizing then where one's mind lapsed. Kanshi shunu rab shunu sangi tenlan jubad tina niman dawad jikdeng dina kunna sao. Now this is those youth who became ordained, entered the teachings of the Buddha, illuminate the whole world, just as the sun and moon devoid of clouds. And they are now this giving an example of the Sangha. Those who pay heed to the Buddha were young lads who, and they went after they took up the ordination, like Shariputra, like the Ananda, Mahanama, Aniruddha, all these amazing celebrated names. They were just robust little young men, They were archers. They were just punching elephants and things like that. They were not really that kind people. they will do anything to win a wife. They all fought for Yashodhara, But later on, these very rivals of his in the first 5-10 years ago, later they all joined him. They all joined him to become ordained and enter the Buddhist, and with complete recollection, because they all joined the teachings, they illuminate the whole world. They become like the people like Mahanama, Aniruddha. They form the part of the five mendicants, 5 main disciples of Buddha. They came from that, because they entered the teachings of the Buddha. They dispelled the cloud-like darkness over their shoulder, and not only did they make their life meaningful, they inspired a whole lot of people. Their names, the holiness of their names, when these great arhats are thought about and their life reread it, everybody become inspired. So they too, when they made the changes, so why we are told about this means we too need to revisit our own thought, our own attitude, our own behaviors, our own certain ways of doing things, what needed modification, transformation, improvement, or changes. And then you wouldn't believe how much effect it will have to other people. Because when the Dharma transforms people's rough people, becomes kind, greedy people become very generous, and lazy people become diligent, and angry become kind, and thoughtless become thoughtful, and so on. Amazing. It definitely gives light and hope and motivates so many people. And that's what makes this the lifeline of Buddha Dharma is the Sangha. The Sangha who heed to the teachings gives the teaching torch of the Dharma passed in the next generation. So because they illuminate the world, the world might be wrought with violence and materialism and greed, and on a larger kind of international scale or national scale or community. But a lot of the problems are personally not being able to deal with their own little egos and pride, and not being able to cull them, and then they suffer. But when they become ordained means transformed. Ordained doesn't mean just become monks or nuns. Even lay people can be transformed. Maybe they don't become monks and nuns just yet, but in many ways they do, because they change their greediness, become culled, and they become more contented. The ill will is replaced by goodwill. This is ordination. This is a real ordination. Traditional ordination is very, 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 very easy to do, but real ordination is very difficult to happen. Real ordination is where you truly transform your attitudes, And they, those who do truly ordain themselves. Ordain means adhere to the precepts, to the little, to adhere doesn't mean you able to keep every precept immaculately. Adhere means restore the broken ones, admit, confess, offer confession, be kind to each other, not harsh on each other's transgression, but be kind to each other, and then learn to practice kindness to each other through citing each other's lapses and not reject them outright as if they are doomed. That's the ordination. Ordination isn't just not breaking this cup and then it's okay type of thing. But even if you don't break the cup, but if you're not kind, so what? You see? So ordain meaning being good. So one has to live the teachings. Sure, some things are meant to be not to be done. Should be eating this, should not be eating this. Those things are, of course, conventionally adhered to. But the purpose of that is to transform ourselves to become humble and not judgmental. Some people are ordained, but they're really rigid and stiff. They become more like worse after ordination. It's as if they give themselves a license to judge others. And that didn't ordain them at all. See? That's exactly what he's talking about. Yeah, one has to lift the clouds, not the artificial clouds. No, the real clouds is the self-grasping, not the public standing or name or reputation. These things are who knows what's going on. And these are opinions of various people. But real thing is oneself has to witness whether one is genuine to the Dharma or not. And the Buddha himself had a lot of people try to defame him and try to accuse him and allege him various things. So that's not real thing. Real thing is one's own pure sincerity, that oneself is making small, gallant steps to practice as one is transforming. Little by little, small by small, not compete with others. That's real ordination, is just to genuine with oneself and not have rivals, not look down on those who aren't like us, not jealous with others. These are pseudo precepts. These are not real precepts. Real precepts are one's own, smile, internally being able to smile. Little genuine progress oneself makes, never mind the other things. Sure, we can not please everyone. And Buddha himself didn't please everyone. So one being genuine to oneself and have true recollection. Yes, those who having done non-virtuous action in the past, guard them off with virtuous actions. Now they try to adhere to the virtuous action, and the virtuous action they try to adopt now are almost like a protective way that gives them some refuge from offending, doing non-virtuous things again. They are the one who illuminate the world, just the sun and moon devoid of clouds. Yeah, so nobody's born immaculately a chosen one, parachuted from the sky and boom, and there was a pure one. No, they should have all very dark past. If you can't remember, you are in trouble. Yeah, not so dark, but reasonably safe. And then making little progress oneself. They will appreciate the Dharma. They're the one who knows, wow, how much refuge they found, and how much hope they still find. Lot of work they might still have to do, but their hope is not dashed, because they have seen their fellow Sangha members who used to be this, who used to be that, but they're all practicing. You can see small but steady progress they're making. This delights you. This inspires you. That's real practice Dharma. It's not believing. It's witnessing each other's small but steady effort, and then you can never give up on any sentient being. Give up. Give hope. You discover hope in everything when you have refuge. Those whose refuge is just for me, it's not refuge really. Those whose refuge empowers them to see the others' good more than they previously were able to see. That is real sign of a precept. They can see good in others. They don't mix the bad of others to cover the good. In spite of the temporal afflictions, you still do not give up on the goodness of sentient beings. That is really what it is, where we do not give up our bodhicitta on any sentient being, no matter what happens. That is refuge. That is really real refuge. Not try to impress each other always, and those who doesn't impress be very impatient. What's the purpose? Afraid of not being pure, is it? And so that you can be angry at others who are pure or not pure. So what's the point? So one has to have this comprehensive refuge, not only to our well-being, not just cover ourselves. Even in motor registry, just cover your own insurance is not considered good. Third party, it's called. Comprehensive is even better. Comprehensive insurance, so that you don't mind the mistake of others. Your insurance covers even the mistake of others. Amazing. That's his refuge. They call comprehensive. Yeah, there is comprehensive refuge in the Dharma. Yeah. Then not so much how pure we are from our side, but even the wrong of others is covered. How about that? You have to pay for a little bit more. But when there is a real accident, both are very happy. They just exchange the numbers, become friends. They both get new cars. Oh, good. That is like comprehensive insurance. Refuge is really comprehensive insurance. When you really find the refuge in the Dharma. It prevents you from being angry at small things. It prevents you from becoming self-loathing, and even you're a little bit upset, but as a refuge, soon it's gone. You don't see the point in that again. You nearly lost yourself. You just rescue yourself. You pulled the chain, and then it came. Rescuer came, like train or something. Yes, yeah. It can save you within 4 hours. Definitely save you. If you do daily 4-hour session, within 4 hours it will save you. Amazing. Formal practice helps. It reviewing your bodhicitta at least helps you to stay crook after a few hours. You straight away say, I shouldn't be doing this. This is not gotten nowhere. I've done this so much before. It's just that's why I have Dharma. And then you review your Dharma, and then it straight away relieves you. It relieves you from that problem. Kanshi dikpe leisure gevering about kanshi sola migawa tene shina nyangemes temba gomban tonwate nyange una dungmin juro. Those who do not delight to be alive, for them death brings no sorrow, because living is a sorrow every day. So sorrow. The steadfast who hold the truth feel no sorrow among those who have sorrow. So that's the amazing thing is those who are steadfast and have reached the height of the samsara, the understanding of samsara's future. There's no difference between the summit of the samsara or lowest. The suffering is everywhere. It's like the is all the sea water is salty, so you don't prefer to drink from one end than the other, because every part of the, so therefore you don't get dissatisfied by this suffering, and you do, instead of becoming overwhelmed by sufferings of everyone, and you're steadfast, you're steadfast because you are now about to connect with nirvana. Nirvana means absence of sorrow amongst the sorrowful ones, but filled with compassion. Your compassion boosts your usefulness to be exposed to those who are suffering, but you're not stressed by seeing sorrows of others. Those sentient beings are stressed by each other's sorrow, and they wish they didn't live, and at the same time they fear death. So it's very contradicting themselves. They fear death, but they wish they didn't want alive. But the opposite is, the next one is Kanshisola Migawa, Teneshina Yanime, we have no sorrow even among the people who have a lot of sorrows. Those, the Kanshisola Migawa, Teneshina Yanime, Dembe Kombang, Towade, Nindu Una Lamer Duk. Now, this is talking about those who do not delight to be alive. For them, death brings no sorrow. The steadfast who hold the truth appear resplendent among their relatives. So you unlike the ordinary sentient being who lament and feel sorrow and suffer loss and blame and angry and so on when they see the sorrow, the steadfast is really stavira. Stavira, the word stavira, most stavira means stable ones. The stavira is the monastics who have reached certain degree of stability, and mostly it's regarded as stavira because 10 years or more who has been ordained and living has supposed to have some degree of stability. So those who have that, whether 10 or 20 or whatever, but they have the benefit of the refuge in the teaching, who hold the truth, who realize the teaching, who not just hold the books or something, no, but who actually realize the teachings, and they appear resplendent among those who are, weeping and wailing, sentient beings who are carrying on about suffering and then complaining and crying and weeping. The one who is stable will see the futility of that. They wouldn't cry, they wouldn't shed a drop of tear over such things, because they shed tears so many already. It's not possible to resolve by shedding such tear. So therefore, they are resplendent among relatives. Means they can now console them. They can excellent opportunity to give the very teachings without being themselves emotionally and destabilized. They themselves become able to teach and be the pillar which supports the ceiling, if you like. Because if you don't have a steadfast one, everything collapses, and everybody is complaining, and no one is teaching them how to look differently and re-angle their perspective. And the one who is not resplendent with others will be doomed by their suffering, and someone's emotional problems and feelings can quickly affect you, and you to become some kind of a empathy. They call it empathy, but empathy is empathy with attachment only cause you to suffer with them instead of reducing their suffering at all. So the suffering become like a contagious disease, and it just spread, it floods everyone. But one who's staying resplendent is not that he doesn't have concern for them, but he himself is not creating attachment and anger and ignorance. He's not ignorant of the suffering. He sees the cause of suffering, and he sees the effect of this cause they themselves created. They now have the effect. But they are complaining and languishing in the suffering because they don't know the cause is like whatever they themselves did. And they are actually pointing finger at something as if that was the cause. So the Stavira, the steadfast one, is compassionately and inclusive towards all sentient beings. There's no one worse off than others. They're all victims of self-grasping. Ordinary people point fingers at other people's actions or something like that. But the steadfast one doesn't see the actions so much. They see the afflictions and they're grasping to the ego as the root cause. They're steadfast because they're not going into blaming who's right and who's wrong, whose action shouldn't have happened, should have happened this. They're not into that. Government can do that, law can do that, and institution does that. But the Dharma does much more than that. And when the government and institution and law does that, what does it do? One is a little bit slightly can wipe the tears, others just more miserable. So it didn't help anybody. So both parties are just question is how much suffers when? It's not a question of not suffering at all. But the one who's steadfast, who behold the truth, appear not only resplendent, but he is able to relieve the sufferings in the long run by his own being able to hold the rein, so to speak, of the mind of the Dharma, and he doesn't lose his emotion to the afflictions and karma of sentient beings. It's the cognitive obscuration of grasping to the ego and I being the root cause. He's more cognizant of that not being understood by majority sentient beings. He's more keen to see how can he alert all to know that. So he's got a totally different task. Yeah, gelong karbo gomgila nakbo cheno number one. Kimne sonas chuyo wemba kayimba delangomba gala dabajame pa pong. This is bhikshus or monks. This is the ordained ones should meditate on wholesome. So those who will meditate, they should meditate on wholesome things, good things, kind things of people, good things that our life is already blessed. Count the blessings. Learn to count blessings. That's a good meditation. And completely eradicate unwholesome. Because when you're busy counting the wholesome things, you don't have time to spend time on unwholesome. So slowly, unwholesome things drops away naturally because it doesn't get your attention. Yeah, having gone from home to homelessness, they should train to take delight in virtue of resorting to solitude and give up all desire in whatsoever. So meaning that when one's mind is set, fixed on attaining wholesome virtuous qualities, one therefore gone from home of suffering to the homelessness of no suffering. Meaning whether one is comfortable in some worldly possessions or positions or relationships or whatever, where people feel that is comfortable, but that's really no real home. In the long term, that home will leak very soon. And so rather than trying to make such mundane home for security, they call it, one should seek the homelessness. One who is able to live a life of simplicity is able to devote most of his time in practices because their time is not taken up by being slave or servitude. When one tries to have a home, have a place, one becomes servitude. One becomes a kind of a servant to just maintain bricks and water and the mundane things. And one therefore cannot be there. And those who are able to practice homelessness, meaning simplicity, they should train to take delight. Then they will delight in the virtue of going to solitude. Then one goes retreat. Retreat is usually far away from conveniences and troubles. Convenience to trouble, I think. Convenience to trouble. Convenience store. Often the convenience stores are always attacked and robbed. Very convenient place to rob. Very few people get robbed in solitude. Some people tried on Milarepa, but they failed dramatically. They realized he's got nothing to steal except some empty pots. Yeah. Some of them prayed, may they be go somewhere it doesn't attract any thieves. Solitude. Yes, solitude. You just talk about the walls and ants. The ants coming to the walls or not. Then one is getting close to solitude. When people are complaining about the ants and rats, they at least must have made a trip to retreat, which is very close to those things. Yeah. Ningbo those who conduct is kept pure and are always pure in their heart, employ restoration and purification. Meaning those who are in retreat are doing these two things: restoration of transgressed vows, purification of transgressed vows. So they retake the vows and they repair the broken ones properly, will engage according in the pure actions. Practitioner is many who acknowledge that they need to own up to their own karma and afflictions, and they're not free to judge or bark at the wrong tree. Now they are barking at the right tree, I suppose. They are actually purifying their own mind and minding themselves to be confined to solitude. Means they're actually watching their mind and dropping some of its afflictions and stains, and then engage in the pure action. What is the pure action? Maybe simplicity, less craving, not attachment to sentient beings, not attached to mental worldly activities. Yeah, then one is able to study. One is able to know the Dharma, not only know the Dharma theoretically and intellectually, but realize them, truly realize them and rejoice them and delight. So for instance, loving kindness, delight the lack of ill will, a wish that one has ill will, no ill will, so to speak, and one actually knows how to pave the way to reach a state where the mind is devoid of animosity. Yeah, they're engaging in that. For that, they might be reciting mantra. For that, they might be fasting. For that, they might be keeping away from doing other activities, because they are purely doing just them. It's called pure actions. Yeah, they will engage accordingly in the pure action that is prescribed, not invented by somebody, but that has been handed down by master to disciple, all the way from Shakyamuni Buddha down through Maha Kashyapa, Upali, Ananda, and so on and so forth, all the way down to 2nd century AD. That's like 6 centuries later, to Nagarjuna, and then all the way to another 2-3 centuries after in Tibet, in Shantarakshita, and so on. And because they all follow that, nobody inventing any new. Nobody need to invent. Buddha has completely designed for the benefit of sentient beings. And those who engage in that, yeah, then retreat. Retreat actually is not some kind of retreat from the world. It's actually treating one's world that has gone wrong, And so, in many ways, try to repair oneself by walking the path. Walking the path. Shingi kyun tsayin dar kikun lan doja kyun deven doja tanam jin and diwu chimpur gyur. Just as the weed are to the field, the defect of all beings is their desire. So the weed does not allow to grow the flowers or garden or crops or whatever, so that's why the weed, they need to be weeded. And likewise, ordinary person's progress is impeded by their own desire. And therefore those who give up desire will be bestowed with great result. Like the harvest. Good harvest is only reapable if the weeding and all the other care for this field has received full attention. Take a lot of time to plow the soil, sow the seed, water it, but not weed at all. Will be completely lost to the weed. So this analogy is example of cultivation, really, cultivation. So one need to not just sow the seed saying, I was ordained by such and such or something like that. That's just the sowing the seed of it. But since then, what kind of weeding has taken place? And if the weeding hasn't taken place, watering hasn't taken place, then of course the harvest, the result will be very, 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 very poor. Maybe some harvest is there, but the grains are very, very, there's nothing there. The yield is so poor. It's only fit to feed the donkeys. But even donkeys don't like it. Even the donkeys know it's not quite the right grain. Yes, of course. They do that in farming. They have various grains. I've seen this in Mustang. There's some certain grains for the king and queen, certain grains for the ministers and so important guests, and certain grains for the servants, and certain grain full of shafts and so all the pigs and dogs. It's like that. Yeah. Then the result yield will be very poor because there's nothing worthy. And then the effect of benefit would be very minimum. Minimum is talking about the harvest. Shingi Kyen, that analogy still goes on. Shingi Kyen is saying now that was first is desire, second is hatred. He says here, just as the weed are to the field, the defect of all beings is their hatred. So go by one those afflictions. Therefore, those who give up hatred will bestow with good result. So what one has to weed through meditation, through discipline, through prayers, through study, through these things like we are doing, is so that we can weed hatred, weed being angry over something, and just see such a childish thing. I shouldn't be angry. This is my friend, this is my mother, this is my this and that, and then just shun them and tell oneself to weed it, to buy a weed remover or something, and learn the Dharma, recite the mantra, and then weed them, And then you will have sleep very well. Your blood pressure will drop down, and you really feel good result. Oh, you feel good. There's a good result. Great result will come when you weed the hatred. Otherwise, your whole cultivation is destroyed. You study some techniques, you got degree, you got years of experience in that, but all will be taken up by the weed. Yeah, it's not that people are not technically skilled, not experienced. Yeah, but the defilements just completely weeded. The weed of the defilements completely, they cannot work very well with the one who's above or with next. They're not courteous, they're not careful, they're not kind, and that hatred and impatience completely destroyed the whole harvest. Lots of people have lost job, respect, positions because of the angry. They're so angry, they're so resentful over small things. They make it so fast. And that's why Dharma is so important. And that's why Shakyamuni Buddha takes great effort to explain this, how to weed our mind of hatred. Like a cultivator, like one who's cultivating. And this analogy goes on to quite a few other afflictions. Shingikyon and saying Kigundila Timukyon. Yeah, this is ignorance. He says that just as the weed are to the field, the defect of all these beings is ignorance. all these beings. So don't isolate yourself. Don't think just for me, that's my fault. All beings are like that. All of their problem is ignorance. So we are in good company. We shouldn't single out ourselves. 7 billion human beings all have to weed hatred and ignorance. And therefore we take refuge. When we take refuge, we should think everybody is with us. That's why we have to do this. Otherwise, it's very dangerous. You do this for yourself, it's going to have minimum effect. Yeah, it's not so much the refuge that you do that's wrong. The intention, which you think it's me, my problem, and his problem, and as there's two persons who's problem to each other, you should include all sentient beings. They too are in this same boat as me, poor thing. And I must do the refuge for the benefit of all sentient beings. I must read these texts. I must listen to this teaching. I must remember this teaching for the benefit of all sentient beings. It's very powerful, because otherwise, it becomes very, very self-centered. Again, just for me again. So that's why those who give up ignorance will be bestowed with great result. Yeah. It's whether the form of what people are doing may be meditation, study, doing kind of community work, being kind, doing small acts of kindness with your work or whatever. But if one did all of that to read these things, then it will produce the same effect. What we do doesn't have to be uniform. Doesn't mean everybody should be sitting in a cave all 12 years. Well, some do, but because it's warm in there. And also it's free lunch. And there's no shortage of people provide for those who are willing to go to the caves. You wouldn't believe. Even in the poorest Buddhist community, there's no shortage of providers of those who wish to do ritual, where the Buddhist culture is strongly established. Where there is not strong Buddhist culture, people think they should be provided. It's because they're in the wrong environment, They should create merit. Go to mix with the cultures where there is fully supported. Go and live among them. Don't complain about not supported or supported. We have to be in the right context. And we are supported. We are always supported. It's just not supported in the same way. We are all supported. In Australia, everybody's supported by social security. Most Western countries, everybody's supported by social security, more than just to feed you to live in the cave. We are handsomely supported. You wouldn't believe how much it doesn't cost to live a simple life. It's just question is how much gratitude we have, and then practice with that. One who's greedy will never be able to weed, their practice. The greed, how much I am not getting help from others, that kind of problem is a big problem in the immature, new frontiers of Dharma, where the community is very new, and they just don't even know that's the system, and let alone thinking they should do, And so, but those who really, with their own self-importance, that's what they have to renounce. Not just where they dress the clothes. That's not renunciation. Real renunciation is self-importance. And then that person who has been ordained but always complaining about what they don't get, they haven't got really real ordained. So those who's complaining they're not getting help, there's no support, that kind of thing is obviously didn't know where they should practice, among what conditions they should practice. So these very verses are directly to everyone. This is not one or two people we're talking about. I'm using that example of being people who ordained or not ordained. People who are disgruntled, with their families, with parents, others. Always, it's because self-importance is the cause of problem. Selfishness is the cause of problem. One is ignorant of that. Here one has to weed that ignorance. The selfishness is the defect of the selfishness is the ignorance of all ignorance. Unless one really heed to the teachings and really get to realize the teaching, one will not be bestowed with any benefit. No benefit is all will yield in the person's mind. Even he meditates, even he prays, even he does many hours of sadhana or practice, he's still the self-importance always feature on the top of his head or her mind. If that's the case, that's why these verses of Udānavarga are direct letters, direct epistles sent by Shakyamuni Buddha through the medium of the centuries, so that people pay heed to the Dharma. They have taken great liberty to translate, compile this up, write this up, translate this, so that people like sentient beings should actually receive these and look into their mind. How are some of their disgruntlement, their disillusionment, their discontentment? Where does this come from? Is it because of others, or because one not reading one's own greed and self-importance? So that's a really important one. Next one, see, this goes to pride. See, just as the wheat are to the field, the defect of all these beings is arrogance. Yeah, arrogance, me first. And therefore, for those who give up arrogance, will be bestowed with great result. Yeah, arrogance is the biggest of the cardinal afflictions. Unless one identifies that, whether it's with who, doesn't matter who that it is in relation, arrogance will not empower you to see the good in others. Good in others, you can't respect others, you can't speak to them kindly, you can't do courteously because of arrogance. When the field is completely weeded, covered in a weed of arrogance, what kind of harvest you're going to reap? There will be no harvest. You're completely lost to the weed. And so here the Buddha used amazing analogies. You know, these analogies and the sequence of these defilements that is listed are not random. You know, in the West I see some counselors or some Buddhist, semi-Buddhist counselors, they try to use acronyms like RAIN or something as their form of counseling. RAIN, and then they say what R represent, what A represent, what I represent, what N represent. You know, that kind of therapy. When the Buddha lists these things, these are the order and sequence have different great meaning. They're not just to rhyme some acronyms. You know, we have to really go to the root text and ensure that that's what the Buddha said, how to weed these cardinal afflictions one by one. Whether they rhyme the word rain or not, it's not important. But the fact that Buddha lists these afflictions in the sequence they are themselves of great importance. So he listed from desire, desire down, because we live in desire realm. And then they listed hatred. People didn't get what they want, desire, and then they have hatred, And then they listed ignorance, they're ignorant of what they want, what they desire is undesirable. So because of their ignorance, they suffer. They desire the undesirable. And when they didn't get the undesirable, they become even more frustrated. So they're angry. So that's why these afflictions listed in the sequence, they are ignorance. And then if you did succeed to get something, you become arrogant. Yeah. And next one is Shingedela Kyone Tsayintar Kigundela Chakpakyon. They were Chatan Tandamla Chinaju Chamber Guru. Now this is to goes to attachment. Because when you are greedy, then if you get something, you think very important. I succeed. You get arrogant. And then you get attached to your possession and positions, name and status. And then, see, just as the weed are to the field, the defect of all beings is attachment. They say attachment even though to the view. The way of the Buddha is the only view, that kind of attachment is not the correct view. That's why Zimba Chuna, Tawa means if you have attachment, it's not correct view. Even the view itself may be correct, but if you attach to it. So the attachment. Therefore, those who give up attachment will be bestowed with great result. So the attachment, this is particularly important for the people who have great admiration to Buddhism and its teachings. No matter how much one loves or rejoices the teaching, one should not get attached to this as the only way. And then being judgmental and critical to other religions, and then create huge confusion. That's what His Holiness Dalai Lama promote, religious harmony, And he's not there to convert other people to Buddhism, but to promote them to have mutual respect, Because if you're attached to being Buddhist, then that's where all the sectarianism comes. And attachment to one's tradition and schools is just as bad, If you are bound up in a black robe or white robe, doesn't make any difference, You can't say, I'm bound in a white robe, it's so pleasant in the white robe. If you're tightly tied up by black or white robe, doesn't make any difference. Likewise, if you're attached to your own view or own schools or tradition, you will not. That's the weed one has to recognize. That's what it's really referring to. And attachment is a very subtle one. Most of the problems are caused by attachment on a kind of manifest worldly level. Next one is Shingikyan saying that Kigundila Sepakyu Teve Setan Tanan Jinandri Uchembro. Now this one goes to craving. He says, just as the weed are to the field, the defect of all these beings is craving. Therefore, for those who give up craving, will be bestowed with great result. So now the craving is listed as the sixth, 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 because if you are attached to something, you will never cease craving. You will never have contentment with what you have. You will still crave. It's like a person who wants to be in next position, and then when you get next position, he wants the next one. And it's the story of someone who become Indra. He even shared the throne of Indra. He still wanted to usurp Indra. There's no time one feel contented. So there will be the craving. Craving is the incessant cause of all the first five afflictions we refer to. So one needs to learn how to weed craving. Tukbo dakbo gyalbote chakbar kyuna chakchen macha kyuna machain chakba chiba shejo. The sixth is the owner, the king, the person. The person is the one who owns these six weeds. The owner of these is because you want to be the king. You crave that purpose, that attention. If one is attached to any of these possession and position of being that, it is attachment. If unattached, it is detachment. Those with attachment are childish. So here the word concludes that. The question is, now if one wants to practice, the practitioner should identify those six root afflictions, desire, hatred, ignorance, plus attachment and craving, and arrogance. And here the miserliness is not listed because when you talk about craving and attachment, they are a result of miserliness anyway. So when we sometimes refer to five root afflictions, here the six root afflictions are listed. Anyone who is owner of these, of course, will know that case. Locha hedang ngagyaltang chapa kando nebai tongji rupe rawaji So it's talking about where there is desire, hatred, arrogance, and dishonesty, it is a city propped by frame of bone and plastered by flesh and blood. So it's talking about our body. Now, no matter how much we look after our upkeepment, from the hair to the toes, hair to the toes and the nails and so on. See, because if there is where the resident is these afflictions, yeah, these afflictions, desire, hatred, ignorance, and concealment, and so on. If these are the kind of thought and feelings and emotions and that is there, then that is the city that is plastered, built by this physical skeleton and flesh and so on. But otherwise, all the citizens, if you like, the city is the body, the citizens inside is all the afflictions. So what's the point of maintaining such a carcass? That's what we're talking about. Yet one is attached to the I and me and my body as a real, when actually one is doing is to maintain these very cardinal afflictions. Yui kune langba lechung dungalche dematona dene deda chingyoshin deda tona chuanam yirabdobu shiro pala chakpa teda pongwa me. This is the final verse. Final verse, it says, the suffering of beings have been caused by motivation. So motivation tainted by either or combination of those 6 root afflictions. So motivation be tainted by this. If these are left undetected, meaning if beings do not know that their afflicted mind, the afflicted mind is causing them to motivate, they will be bound by them. Yeah, then they will be bound like the weed. When one doesn't know where the weed's growing, doesn't do in time, they will grow so much that whole harvest will be destroyed. And whole life's effort and study and learning, everything will be destroyed by anger one day. Usually it's under the sway of the affliction, people just blow it away. They take so much effort to build something, all of a sudden they just blow away by one reaction under the sway of the curse of hatred or curse of combination of those afflictions. Then they are not only bound by them, they will be destroyed by them. If they realize them, which is difficult to realize, if they realize them, this is the people who have Dharma, who have refuge, has better chance of realizing them. If they realize them, they have forded all the rivers. Yeah. Now, means then you have crossed the river of samsara. Because they realize, every day they realize they detect their anger, they detect their desire, they detect their pride and arrogance and craving and attachment. Sometimes when you're really unhappy, usually we are unhappy because they didn't do this to us. We don't realize we are craving something that is actually not fulfilled. Because our craving was not fulfilled, and therefore we are suffering. It's very easy to see the condition out there as the cause of it. The real cause is our craving, and our ignorance of it, and our desiring of it, and ignorance, all of the above. If they realize them, if someone in their goodness of their best mind realize them, which is really taking up the practice Dharma is like that. And when you realize them, you become cautioned from within, not to act under the influence of these afflictions. It's like you said you had too much to drink, don't drive. It's like saying, oh, you're angry, don't now react under this kind of unreliable afflictions. And almost like we realize them. Oh, I'm about to react, and now I'm about to overreact. I don't realize my own affliction is the big problem. I'm thinking it's him or her or them. If you realize them, they have forded all the rivers. Yeah, you will not be drowned in the rivers. You will know how to cross the rivers. The outsiders cannot give up those attachments. Outsiders meaning those to whom Dharma is outside their scope. The insider, Nangpa, Tibetan word for Buddhism, Buddhists are insiders, meaning those who have this inside knowledge. Why the problem? Why there is a problem? They know that in their mind they need to reconstitute. But those who think what about outside the people, it's there, it's him, or it's a society, or community, or relatives, or neighbors, or they're outsiders. They're drowned in their attachment. They're drowned in the hatred. They're drowned in the river of hatred and anger and judgment and so on. They don't know it's anything to do with their own selfishness and craving of them. They're drowned by the very affliction of theirs. Yet those who can ford the river are those who know and realize. And that's why people who take refuge and have refuge, they're taking refuge to acknowledge that. With Dharma, study and listening and contemplating, meditating, it helps to reconstitute their mind. Particularly if you have a good discipline to meditate and study and read and regularly, which is very important because so many things in life takes our attention away. If we don't allocate time and commitment, and our mind get depleted, and we lose a little bit of the culture they have, and soon get lost in materialism and so on. But when one is able to, top up one's knowledge and refresh one's knowledge and realize a reminder, Dharma is a reminder. Dharma is just a reminder to how think well, how not to fall victim to the disorder of one's own thinking, and then bring some kind of order and sort of system of governance. One, even things are collapsing all over the place outside. It does not collapse you. It makes you to confirms that how futile and essenceless these things are, and do not expect an unrealistic expectation. Things doesn't go well. You don't get, you don't mourn and groan. They're just relative, If it meant to happen, it meant to happen. If it not meant to happen, it wouldn't happen. Even those meant to happen, but still, how long would it happen? It's only happened for a little while. After that, it's got no relevance. So how long is anything relevant? You never know. So that's why one can ford those rivers. One will not be drowned in craving. One will not be drowned in poor me, saying, I'm not good, I failed myself, or ignorant that everything is interdependent, but blaming oneself, or blaming somebody. One is drowned in ignorance that everything Buddha says is interdependent. He never says it's all fault of you or somebody else. Ignorant that everything is interdependent, but because of that one is blaming oneself or others or angry at one. But one who is interdependently understanding, not ignorant, he knows how not to do that. He has already the good tool he bought how to weed. he can weed that, and he's not his cultivation is not impeded by the weed of ignorance. Even he's slightly angry. He realizes there's no point to it. You don't see that. You don't get puffed up by arrogance either. You can't see the danger. Even you have really good result, everything goes exactly where you want to do. Be careful. There's another weed. You get attached. Oh, I knew I was good. Oh, we did it type of attachment. What did you do? Grown more weed. Grown more weed. So with this we conclude this chapter. Miscellaneous, but very rich one. That one, very rich one. Complete teaching in itself of the Four Noble Truths and all the six root afflictions. So we're going to have a little term break, as you know. I'm very happy to resume the next term, the rest of the Udānavarga. And everybody who's watching and listening to this through the through YouTube and through me too, please benefit yourself, and it will have a, it's not so much kind of a teaching is not so much kind of temporary entertainment. It's more for us to point us things we didn't see, things it didn't occur. Then it helps us. Teaching is pointing, and pointing. Buddha is pointing always. His infinite compassion and wisdom is beaming through these devices. And may you all be well. Educational merits.